How do you tell America that an indictment, conviction, and compensation to the bereaved family doesn't even begin to address the horrors of police as it pertains to people of color when those indicted and convicted are Black? There are so many ways I could address the murder of Tyre Nichols, but which version would be most edifying is the question. An expression of anger at this point is futile unless expressed in equal proportion to the harm done. The secret is the harm itself, because it cannot be calculated after years of being submerged. What has been expressed outwardly over the years by mass protest does not even begin to tell what's boiling and simmering underneath. So the harm and damage caused for those who feel it remains uncalculated. Yet, in the midst of this, peace has been called for by city and state officials and the family of the deceased murdered by police. Yet they have their justice, and compensation for their loss will be pursued as well. Then there are the city and state officials who echo the horror of the murder committed, who hold nothing back while describing the actions of those officers who attacked as a pack of wolves, who huddled together to manufacture lies they would tell, to justify the actions taken, while pepper spraying and kicking and beating with batons and fists, and standing him upright while handcuffed until he could no longer stand. Never in all my years of seeking accountability for police brutality and murder have I ever heard such a complete and thorough description of actions taken by an officer who had savagely beaten and murdered an innocent victim. The gruesome savageness of it all had always been defended, pending investigation. We were told cameras don't tell the full story and how we ought not rush to judgment. But in the case of these 5 officers, there's been no withholding back by those in authority over them regarding what is thought and felt concerning their actions. Is this some new standard being applied? Because we had not seen it until now. And had that position been taken for each and every murder committed, Tyre Nichols might very well be alive today. Because all officers guilty of these acts would have refrained from committing them, knowing the savagery of it all would be ostracized very publicly with the names and faces of the guilty. How do you tell America that an indictment, conviction, and compensation to the bereaved family doesn't even begin to address the horrors of police as it pertains to people of color when those indicted and convicted are Black? Because in this country, the indictment and conviction of a Black male, regardless to whatever office or status they hold, is not only the expectation, but the norm underneath a system of white supremacy. So what have they done different that they wouldn't ordinarily do? As for those officers, they are Black and they are guilty, and each ought to be indicted and convicted. But how does that cure America of her racist tactics by use of police nationwide? Does holding up the savagery of those officers erase the history of police born out of slavery and instituted as a check and balance where Blacks are continually checked for some violation of law while whites are protected underneath it? Tyre Nichols was stopped and checked, and it ended with his life being taken. There were no protections for whites in this scenario because those who took his life were Black. And as much as I'd like to believe the swift action taken was based on the evidence of the crime committed, that has not been the standard when it comes to police. And for those reasons, mass protests erupted demanding justice. Because in the face of evidence, no arrest or indictment had been made. But in the case of these 5 officers, every word spoken and action taken was publicized, followed by thoughts, comments, and opinions concerning it. I hope indeed this is the new standard for murders by police without reason. Let the savage be deemed a savage, and let the racist be deemed a racist, and let justice be had for those who need it, without witnessing the crime and then begging for peace by those who are protesting. Because to have witnessed it after allowing a history of beatings and murders ending in death upon innocent people, the call for peace could easily be misconstrued as the very thing you hope to prevent. It, in fact, resembles the very actions of those officers who told Tyre to lie down when in fact he was. They provoked his natural response to shield his face and body by continually hitting him, yet demanding he put his hands down. And to make it crystal clear what they wanted to do, they stood him upright while handcuffed so they could get a clear shot at him, totally defenseless. And when they had done so, they punched and beat in the face and head with batons and fists, and ultimately murdered him. So when they tell you to be in peace after you've witnessed these things, please understand what it is they're after. Tyre Nichols died not knowing, but you do. So what are you going to do?